My name is Buster Hartwell, and I'm about to tell you how I destroyed 3 lives without breaking a single law. But first, let me set the scene at what my company calls Gatsby Night, because nothing says corporate sophistication like naming your party after a story about wealthy people behaving badly. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stood in the marble-floored lobby of Meridian Financial, adjusting my bow tie and watching Manhattan's elite stumble through our annual circus. At 45, I'd learned that corporate parties are just high school with better liquor and more expensive mistakes. Tonight would prove that theory in spectacular fashion. Buster, darling, you look absolutely dreadful in that tux. My wife Emily glided up, her phone already positioned for a selfie. At 40, she'd perfected the art of looking stunning while delivering casual cruelty. Her Instagram followers, all 2.3 million of them, ate up her authentic married life content like starving wolves. Thanks, sweetheart. You look radiant as always. I meant it. Emily was genuinely beautiful, which made what happened next even more devastating. She barely acknowledged my compliment, too busy adjusting her angle for the perfect shot. Lucas, come here. We need photos for the brand. Lucas Morrison appeared at her elbow like a well-trained puppy. 28, perfectly sculpted jaw, and my former assistant. I'd promoted him to brand coordinator for Emily's influencer partnerships 6 months ago. Looking back, that was like handing a pyromaniac a box of matches and pointing toward my house. Mr. Hartwell. Lucas nodded with practiced respect, but his eyes never left Emily. They had the hungry look of a man who'd discovered something he wanted and didn't care who got hurt in the process. The party swirled around us. Board members, their wives, various social media personalities Emily had insisted we invite for cross-promotional opportunities. I nursed my scotch and observed, a skill that had served me well in 15 years of corporate warfare. Buster's so boring, Emily announced to her phone camera, loud enough for half the room to hear. He just stands there like a statue while I create content. Thank God I have Lucas to help with the fun stuff. A few people nearby chuckled uncomfortably. I felt the familiar burn of public humiliation, but kept my expression neutral. If humiliation was currency, I'd be a billionaire by now. That's when I noticed Lydia Chen, Emily's PR manager, whispering frantically with 2 other influencers near the champagne fountain. Their body language screamed gossip, and they kept glancing between Emily and Lucas with barely contained excitement. Emily and her toy boy. I caught that much before they noticed me watching and scattered like roaches when the lights come on. My pressure spiked, but I maintained my corporate poker face. Years of boardroom negotiations had taught me to hide my reactions until I understood the full scope of any situation. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app, a habit from taking meeting notes that was about to prove invaluable. The party reached its crescendo around midnight. Emily had consumed enough gin to float a yacht, and her inhibitions had sailed away with her sobriety. She climbed onto a chair near the main bar, phone in one hand, champagne flute in the other. "Attention, everyone," she called out, her voice carrying across the marble floors. "I have an announcement." The room quieted. Board members, colleagues, socialites, everyone turned to watch. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach, but I kept recording. "Life with Buster is so incredibly boring," she slurred, gesturing wildly with her champagne. "I mean, seriously boring, like watching paint dry in slow motion. Thank goodness I found someone who knows how to have fun." She grabbed Lucas by his perfectly pressed shirt and pulled him into a kiss that would have made a sailor blush. The room erupted in shocked murmurs and the rapid-fire clicking of camera phones. Emily's own phone, still recording for her Instagram Live, captured every mortifying second. I stood frozen, watching my marriage implode in real time while dozens of people documented it for posterity. The board members looked scandalized. My colleagues alternated between pity and barely concealed amusement. The socialites were practically salivating at the drama, but I kept recording. "Isn't he gorgeous?" Emily continued, running her hands through Lucas's hair while he stood there grinning like he'd won the lottery. "And so much better at, well, everything that matters." The kiss happened again, longer this time. Someone in the crowd actually applauded. I recognized the laugh of Victor Blackstone, my corporate rival, rising above the chaos. He was enjoying this immensely. When Emily finally came up for air, she spotted me in the crowd. Instead of shame or regret, her face lit up with the cruel delight of someone who'd just delivered the perfect punchline. "Don't look so serious, Buster. It's just business." She winked at the camera, then at me. "Everything's content these days." The room held its collective breath, waiting for my reaction. Would I explode? Storm out? Make an even bigger scene? Instead, I smiled. Not a happy smile. The kind of smile a shark might wear. I stopped the recording, slipped my phone into my jacket pocket, and walked calmly through the crowd. People stepped aside, probably expecting me to confront Emily or Lucas directly. Instead, I headed for the exit, but not before stopping next to Lucas and speaking just loud enough for the nearby microphones to catch. "Lucas, see me in my office first thing Monday morning. We need to discuss your future with the company." Emily giggled, thinking it was part of the joke. Lucas's face, however, went white as fresh snow. I left them there, basking in their moment of triumph while I planned their complete and utter destruction. Monday morning arrived gray and bitter, matching my mood perfectly. I sat in my glass-walled office on the 42nd floor, watching Lucas pace nervously in the reception area. He'd been there for 20 minutes, checking his phone obsessively and running his hands through his perfect hair. Let him sweat. I'd spent the weekend reviewing company policies, consulting with our legal department, and having a very interesting conversation with our head of human resources, Janet Morrison. No relation to Lucas, thankfully. That would have complicated things. My desk phone buzzed. "Mr. Hartwell, Lucas Morrison is here for his appointment. Send him in, please." Lucas entered like a man walking to his execution, which wasn't far from the truth. He'd dressed carefully, expensive suit, confident posture, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "Have a seat, Lucas." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the one I typically used for termination meetings. The symbolism wasn't lost on him. "Mr. Hartwell, about Friday night, let me stop you right there." I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. The video from Emily's Instagram Live was queued up, ready to play. "I want to make sure we're both clear on what happened." I pressed play. Emily's drunken voice filled the office. "Life with Buster is so incredibly boring. Thank goodness I found someone who knows how to have fun." Lucas watched himself kiss my wife in front of 200 people and a live internet audience. His face cycled through embarrassment, fear, and finally a desperate attempt at defiance. "It wasn't what it looked like," he said weakly. "Really? Because it looked like you were making out with your boss's wife while she publicly humiliated him. But maybe I need glasses." I closed the laptop. "Tell me, Lucas, how long have you been sleeping with Emily?" His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. We're not. It's not like that." "Of course it's not." I pulled out my phone and opened another recording, the one I'd made while following them after they left the party. Their voices were crystal clear as they giggled about their performance and discussed their next content opportunity. Lucas's face went from pale to green. "You recorded us?" "In a public hallway, yes. Perfectly legal." I leaned back in my chair. "Now let's discuss your employment status." "You can't fire me for this. It's not illegal to..." "To what? Sleep with the boss's wife? You're right, that's not illegal. But using company resources for personal relationships? That's a violation of our ethics policy. Using company credit cards for hotel rooms, that's misappropriation of funds. And lying on your expense reports? That's fraud. I slid a manila folder across the desk. Lucas opened it with trembling hands, revealing 6 months of credit card statements, hotel receipts, and expense reports. Every romantic dinner, every weekend getaway, every business meeting that was actually a rendezvous, all paid for with company money. I can explain? I'm sure you can, but you'll be explaining it to someone else. Your employment with Meridian Financial is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. I pressed the intercom button. Janet, please send security to my office. Lucas shot to his feet. You can't do this. Emily will what? She's not your boss, Lucas. I am. Or rather, I was. I stood up, enjoying the height advantage. And speaking of Emily, she's also been terminated as our brand ambassador. Gross misconduct, public intoxication, and conduct detrimental to the company's reputation. His jaw dropped. You fired Emily? This morning, actually. Right after I sent the party footage to the New York Social Register. They were very interested in the story. I smiled. Amazing how quickly gossip spreads when you give it to the right people. 2 security guards appeared at my door. Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Morrison to his desk to collect his personal items, then see him out of the building. He's no longer employed here. As they flanked Lucas, he turned back to me with desperation in his eyes. This isn't over, Buster. Emily and you are about to discover what life is like without steady income. Good luck with that. The guards led him away, past the curious stares of our colleagues. I watched through my glass walls as he cleaned out his desk, his movements sharp with anger and humiliation. My phone rang almost immediately. Buster, what the hell have you done? Emily's voice was shrill with panic. Lucas just called me crying, and my brand partnerships are calling saying they're pulling out. Good morning to you too, sweetheart. How was your weekend? Don't you dare joke with me. Fix this right now. Fix what? The fact that you humiliated me in front of 200 people? Or the fact that your boyfriend was stealing from my company to fund your affair? Silence stretched between us, broken only by her ragged breathing. It wasn't an affair, she said finally. It was just content, drama for the brand. Content that's now trending on Twitter under the hashtag influencer meltdown. Your followers are having quite the field day with it. I could hear her frantically scrolling through her phone. Oh God, the comments. The internet can be so cruel, can it? Especially when people realize they've been following a fraud. I'm coming home. We need to talk. Actually, don't. I've changed the locks. Your things are being packed as we speak. You can't kick me out of my own home. Check the deed, Emily. It's my name on the mortgage, my money that bought it, my credit that maintains it. You're just the pretty face who posed for pictures in it. The line went silent. I leaned back in my chair and watched the city spread out below me, feeling a satisfaction I hadn't experienced in months. My intercom buzzed again. Mr. Hartwell, Victor Blackstone would like to see you. He says it's urgent. The satisfaction evaporated. Victor never requested meetings unless he smelled weakness, and my very public humiliation had probably triggered every predatory instinct he possessed. Send him in. Victor entered my office like he owned it. His silver hair perfectly styled, his suit probably worth more than most people's cars. At 50, he'd climbed the corporate ladder by stepping on anyone who got in his way, and he'd been trying to step on me for years. Buster, my friend. Rough weekend? Nothing I couldn't handle. What can I do for you, Victor? He settled into the chair Lucas had just vacated, making himself comfortable. The board is concerned. This morning's developments have raised some questions about your judgment. My judgment? Hiring your wife as a brand ambassador, promoting her lover to manage the relationship. The optics are terrible. He leaned forward, his smile sharp as a blade. "They're wondering if you're the right person to represent Meridian's interests going forward." I felt the trap closing around me. Victor had been waiting for exactly this kind of opportunity, and Emily had handed it to him on a silver platter. "I see, and I suppose you volunteered to help them find a replacement, if necessary, for the good of the company, of course." My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it. "Victor, board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Come prepared to explain yourself, or don't come at all." I looked up at Victor, who was checking his own phone with obvious satisfaction. "See you tomorrow, Buster. Bright and early." I arrived at the office at 6 a.m., 3 hours before the board meeting that could end my career. The building was nearly empty, just security guards and the overnight cleaning crew. Perfect. I'd spent the night going through files, cross-referencing expense reports, and making phone calls to contacts I'd cultivated over 15 years in corporate finance. If Victor wanted to play hardball, I'd show him what a real power move looked like. Janet Morrison from HR arrived at 7:30, looking surprised to see me already there. "Buster, I wasn't expecting you this early." "Big day ahead. Janet, I need you to pull all expense reports for Lucas Morrison, Emily Hartwell, and Victor Blackstone for the past year. Everything. Corporate cards, reimbursements, travel expenses." She raised an eyebrow. "Victor too?" "Especially Victor. And Janet, this stays between us until after the board meeting." By 8:30, I had everything I needed. The conference room was filling up with board members, their faces ranging from concerned to openly hostile. Victor sat at the far end of the table, looking like a cat who'd caught a particularly fat mouse. Chairman Robert Sterling called the meeting to order at exactly 9 a.m. "Gentlemen, we're here to discuss the recent events involving Mr. Hartwell and their impact on Meridian Financial's reputation." "Thank you, Robert." Victor stood up, commanding the room's attention. "As you all know, this weekend's social media incident has created significant concerns about Buster's judgment and leadership capabilities. He activated the wall-mounted display, showing screenshots of Emily's Instagram posts, Twitter reactions, and news articles about the Meridian meltdown. The headlines were brutal. "Financial executive's wife cheats publicly. Corporate party turns into social media disaster. When influence goes wrong." "The company's stock price has dropped 3% since Monday morning," Victor continued. "Our clients are asking questions. Our competitors are circling like vultures. This is exactly the kind of scandal that destroys careers and companies." Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. I sat quietly, letting Victor build his case while I prepared my counterattack. "Furthermore," Victor said, warming to his theme, "the fact that Buster hired his own wife as a brand ambassador, then promoted her lover to manage that relationship, raises serious questions about his ability to separate personal and professional interests." That's enough. I stood up, my voice cutting through Victor's monologue. "May I respond to these accusations?" Chairman Sterling nodded reluctantly. "Of course, Buster. Please explain yourself." I walked to the display and connected my laptop. "Gentlemen, you're absolutely right to be concerned about the separation of personal and professional interests, which is why I've prepared a comprehensive review of how company resources have been used by various employees." The first slide appeared. Lucas Morrison's expense reports, highlighted in red wherever company funds had been used for personal purposes. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, weekend trips, all charged to the company while he was conducting his affair with Emily. "Lucas Morrison stole approximately $47,000 in company funds over 6 months to finance his relationship with my wife. I discovered this Friday night and terminated him immediately Monday morning." The board members leaned forward, studying the evidence. Victor's confident expression flickered with uncertainty. Emily's brand ambassador contract included a morality clause specifically designed to protect the company from exactly this kind of scandal. When she violated that clause publicly, I terminated her contract within hours. I clicked to the next slide. Social media analytics showing Emily's follower engagement dropping dramatically as news of the scandal spread. Her brand partnerships have already begun canceling contracts. Her influence is worthless now, which means her value to us was always zero. Buster, Victor interrupted. This doesn't change the fact that you created this situation by what, Victor? By trusting my wife and my assistant? I clicked to the next slide, and Victor's face went white. The screen showed his expense reports, with several interesting patterns highlighted. Expensive dinners with Emily over the past 3 months, hotel charges that coincided with her business meetings, travel expenses that matched her Instagram location tags. It seems I wasn't the only one with a personal interest in Emily's success, I said calmly. Victor, would you like to explain these charges to the board? The room erupted in whispers. Victor shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Those were legitimate business expenses. I was helping develop the brand partnership strategy. In hotel rooms at midnight, while her husband was in other cities on business? I clicked through more slides, each one more damning than the last. Gentlemen, it appears my wife was quite busy building strategic partnerships throughout the company. Chairman Sterling's voice cut through the chaos. Victor, sit down. Buster, continue. The real question isn't whether I showed poor judgment. It's whether this company will tolerate employees who steal funds and abuse their positions for personal gain. I looked directly at Victor. I've already terminated the 2 employees who were stealing from us. The question is whether we need to terminate a third. Victor's career was imploding in real time, and everyone in the room could see it. His carefully cultivated reputation for strategic thinking and corporate leadership was crumbling under the weight of evidence that he'd been just as compromised as anyone else. Furthermore, I continued, I've already begun damage control. The story is shifting from executive's wife cheats to company fires employees for theft and misconduct. Our legal department is preparing statements emphasizing our zero-tolerance policy for ethical violations. I clicked to the final slide. Preliminary stock market data showing Meridian's price beginning to recover as news of the terminations spread. The market likes decisive action, gentlemen. They like companies that clean house when necessary. Chairman Sterling studied the data for a long moment, then looked around the table. Any questions for Mr. Hartwell? Board member Patricia Williams raised her hand. Buster, how do we know there aren't other employees involved in this situation? Excellent question, Patricia. I've already initiated a comprehensive audit of all employee expense accounts and brand partnership activities. We should have a full report within the week. Victor finally found his voice. This is a witch hunt. You're trying to destroy me because you tried to destroy me first? I smiled. Victor, you've been waiting for an opportunity like this for years. The only problem is that you got greedy and compromised yourself in the process. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what had just happened. Victor had overplayed his hand, and I'd turned his own weapons against him. Chairman Sterling cleared his throat. Victor, I think it would be best if you took some time off while we review these irregularities. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. Clear out your office today. We'll be in touch. Victor stormed out, his face purple with rage. The remaining board members spent another hour reviewing my evidence and discussing next steps, but the outcome was never in doubt. I'd not only saved my own career, I'd eliminated my biggest corporate rival in the process. As the meeting broke up, Chairman Sterling pulled me aside. Impressive work, Buster. I have to ask, did you know about Victor's involvement before Friday night? Honestly, no. But when someone tries to destroy you, it's amazing how motivated you become to dig up the truth. He chuckled. Remind me never to get on your bad side. I walked back to my office feeling like I'd won the first battle in what was shaping up to be a very long war. Emily and Lucas were down, Victor was finished, but I wasn't done yet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you're so smart. This isn't over. L. Lucas was making threats now. That was a mistake. I forwarded the message to our security department and legal team, then opened my laptop to begin phase 2 of my revenge. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them what a professional looked like. The divorce papers were served to Emily at her new apartment, a cramped studio in Queens that she was renting month to month because no landlord would give her a lease without proof of income. My lawyer, Patricia Chen, had crafted a masterpiece of legal destruction wrapped in the elegant language of family law. The infidelity clause in your prenup is ironclad, Patricia explained over lunch at my usual spot downtown. She gets nothing except what she brought into the marriage, which according to these financial records was approximately $12,000 in credit card debt and a leased BMW that's about to be repossessed. And the social media accounts? Legally, they're hers, but the brand partnerships were contracted through your company, so those revenue streams are gone. Her follower count is dropping daily, down to 1.8 million from 2.3 million last week. I sipped my coffee and watched the numbers continue to plummet on my phone. Emily's comment sections had become war zones, with former fans posting screenshots of her most hypocritical moments and rival influencers piling on with barely concealed glee. She's trying to control the narrative, Patricia continued, but it's not working. That podcast interview she did yesterday made things worse. I'd listened to the entire train wreck. Emily had tried to paint herself as the victim of an abusive marriage, claiming I was controlling and emotionally distant. Unfortunately for her, I had years of her own social media posts showing her bragging about our lavish lifestyle and perfect relationship. Speaking of controlling the narrative, I said, I need you to prepare something for me. I slid a flash drive across the table. These are recordings from our home security system. Emily and Lucas discussing their strategy for humiliating me, their plans to leverage the scandal for more followers, and some very interesting conversations about my financial accounts. Patricia's eyebrows shot up. How long were you recording them? The system runs continuously. I just never had reason to review the footage before. I smiled. Amazing what people say when they think nobody's listening. That afternoon, I decided to visit my old gym, the exclusive Manhattan Athletic Club where Lucas had been trying to maintain his membership despite being unemployed. I found him in the weight room, struggling through a bench press routine while other members whispered and pointed. Lucas, I called out cheerfully, loud enough for everyone to hear. How's the job search going? He nearly dropped the barbell. Several gym members turned to watch, recognizing both of us from the viral videos that were still circulating online. Buster, I didn't expect to see you here. Really? I've been a member for 8 years. You've been here for what? 6 months? Right around the time you started stealing from my company to afford the membership fees? His face went red. I wasn't stealing. $47,000 in fraudulent expense claims says otherwise. I picked up a towel and snapped it at him playfully, the way you might tease a friend. Except we weren't friends, and everyone in the room could feel the tension. You should spend less time bench pressing my wife and more time looking for a job. The other gym members were openly staring now. Lucas stood up, trying to salvage some dignity, but I wasn't finished. Oh, and Lucas. I walked over to his gym bag and pulled out his protein powder. You might want to cut back on the supplements. They're expensive, and unemployment doesn't pay much. I unscrewed the cap and dumped the entire container into the nearby trash can. White powder scattered everywhere, and Lucas just stood there, humiliated and speechless. Have a great workout. I patted him on the shoulder and walked away, leaving him surrounded by whispers and barely contained laughter. That evening, Emily showed up at my office building. Security called to let me know she was in the lobby, demanding to see me. Send her up, I said, but have someone escort her. She arrived at my office, flanked by 2 security guards, her designer clothes wrinkled and her perfect makeup smudged. The woman who'd once commanded attention wherever she went now looked desperate and defeated. Buster, please, we need to talk. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same chair where I'd fired Lucas a week ago. "What can I do for you, Emily?" "You can stop this insanity. The divorce papers, the recordings, the media leaks. It's destroying my life. Your life was destroyed the moment you decided to humiliate me in public. I'm just making sure everyone understands the consequences of that choice." She leaned forward, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, okay? I was drunk. I was stupid. It was just supposed to be content for the brand. Content that cost you everything you cared about. Funny how that works. My followers are turning on me. My brand partnerships are gone. Lucas won't even return my calls." Her voice broke. "I have nothing left. You have exactly what you had when I met you, which is nothing. The difference is that now everyone knows it." She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact instant when she realized that the man she'd married, the boring, predictable husband she'd taken for granted, was gone forever. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "I want you to disappear. Sign the divorce papers, take your $12,000 in debt, and start over somewhere else. Because if you stay in New York, if you keep trying to rebuild your brand, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you really are. You can't do this to me. I'll fight back. You'll what? Go on more podcasts and tell everyone how terrible I am? Please do. I have hours of security footage showing you and Lucas planning this whole thing, discussing how to manipulate my emotions and exploit my trust for content." I turned my computer screen toward her. The video showed her and Lucas in our kitchen, laughing about how pathetic I was and how easy it would be to humiliate me for views. "This goes public if you don't sign the papers by Friday." She watched herself on the screen, her face crumbling as she realized how calculating and cruel she looked. When the video ended, she was sobbing. "You're all I have left," she said finally. I looked at this woman I'd once loved, this person who'd shared my bed and my life for 5 years, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Sounds lonely. You might want to get used to it." Security escorted her out, and I turned back to my computer to check the latest social media updates. Emily's follower count had dropped below 1 million for the first time in 3 years. Lucas had deactivated all his accounts after someone posted photos of his gym humiliation. Victor had been quietly let go from the company, his 20-year career ending in disgrace. But I wasn't finished yet. Phase 3 was about to begin, and it would be the most satisfying of all. The Corporate Excellence Gala was Meridian Financial's biggest event of the year, 500 of Manhattan's most influential people gathering to celebrate success, network, and see who was rising or falling in the corporate hierarchy. This year's theme was transparency and trust, which I found deliciously ironic. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing for tonight, working with our event coordinator to ensure every detail was perfect. The venue was the Grand Ballroom at the Plaza Hotel, with its soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers providing the perfect backdrop for what I had planned. "Buster, you look fantastic." Janet Morrison from HR appeared at my elbow, resplendent in a navy evening gown. "I have to say, the company's handled this whole situation brilliantly. The press coverage has been overwhelmingly positive." She was right. The narrative had shifted completely over the past 2 weeks. Instead of "executive's wife cheats publicly," the story was now "company demonstrates zero tolerance for ethical violations." Our stock price had not only recovered but reached a new high as investors praised our decisive action. "Any word on Victor's replacement?" I asked. "The boards narrowed it down to 3 candidates. Word is you're the front-runner for his position. Senior Vice President of Strategic Development. Victor's old job, with a corner office, a substantial raise, and direct access to the board of directors." The irony was perfect. His attempt to destroy me had created the very opportunity I'd been waiting years to receive. "Mr. Hartwell?" A young man in a server's uniform approached with a tablet. "You asked to be notified when the presentation system was ready?" "Thank you, James. Everything uploaded correctly?" "Yes, sir. The files are queued up and ready to go whenever you give the signal." I'd spent considerable effort ensuring that tonight's audiovisual presentation would be memorable. The gala always featured a highlight reel of the company's achievements, but this year's version would include some special bonus content. The evening progressed smoothly through cocktails and dinner. I worked the room like the seasoned corporate politician I'd become, shaking hands, sharing war stories, and accepting congratulations on how well I'd handled my personal difficulties. Around 10 p.m., as the evening began winding down, I spotted an unexpected guest near the bar. Lucas Morrison, somehow having gained entry despite being banned from company events. He was nursing a whiskey and glaring at me across the crowded room. This was about to get interesting. I made my way through the crowd, noting how conversations stopped as I passed. Everyone knew the story by now, and they were curious to see how I'd handle an unexpected confrontation with my wife's former lover. Lucas, interesting choice of venue for our reunion. He turned to face me, his jaw clenched with barely controlled anger. You destroyed my life. I fired you for stealing. You destroyed your own life. You know it wasn't about the money. This whole thing was Emily's idea. The drama, the publicity, the content creation. I was just playing along. Ah, so you were the victim in all this? Poor Lucas, manipulated by the evil influencer into sleeping with his boss's wife and stealing $47,000. I signaled the bartender for a scotch. That's a fascinating perspective on personal responsibility. She used me, he said desperately, just like she used you. The whole marriage was content for her brand, the perfect husband, the luxury lifestyle, the corporate wife aesthetic. None of it was real. I studied his face, looking for signs of deception, but found only genuine anguish. Lucas wasn't lying. He really believed he'd been manipulated, which made what I was about to do even more satisfying. You know what, Lucas? You're absolutely right. Emily did use both of us. The difference is that I figured it out and did something about it. What do you mean? I checked my watch. 10:15 p.m. Perfect timing. Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman Sterling's voice boomed across the ballroom as he took the stage. Before we conclude tonight's festivities, we have a special presentation celebrating Meridian Financial's commitment to transparency and ethical leadership. The lights dimmed, and the massive screens around the room came to life. I'd told the board this would be an inspirational video about overcoming challenges and maintaining corporate integrity. I hadn't mentioned that it would be quite so specific. The first clip showed Emily and Lucas in our kitchen, planning their performance for the company party. Their voices were crystal clear as they discussed how to maximize the drama for social media engagement. The key is making it look spontaneous, Emily's recorded voice explained. But we need to make sure all the cameras catch it. Buster's humiliation needs to go viral for this to work. The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. I watched Lucas's face drain of color as he realized what was happening. The second clip showed Victor meeting with Emily at an expensive restaurant. Their conversation focused on how to use the scandal to force me out of the company. Once Buster's gone, Victor's voice filled the room. You and I can rebuild your brand around the strong woman who escaped an abusive marriage narrative. Very marketable. The third clip was the most devastating. Emily alone in our bedroom, talking to her phone camera about her boring husband and how easy it would be to manipulate me for content. He's so desperate to make me happy, she laughed. He'll do anything I ask. It's actually kind of pathetic. By now, the entire ballroom was transfixed. 500 of Manhattan's most powerful people were watching my personal life explode in high definition. But instead of humiliation, I felt only satisfaction. This wasn't my shame being displayed. It was theirs. The final clip showed Lucas and Emily celebrating after the party, counting the new followers and calculating potential revenue from the viral scandal. This is the best content we've ever created, Lucas said, kissing Emily passionately. Buster's humiliation is going to make us rich. The screens went dark. The ballroom was silent except for the whispered conversations of 500 people who just witnessed the most spectacular corporate revenge in Manhattan history. Chairman Sterling returned to the microphone, his voice steady despite the chaos he'd just witnessed. Ladies and gentlemen, this presentation demonstrates why Meridian Financial maintains zero tolerance for ethical violations and personal conduct that reflects poorly on our organization. The applause started slowly, then built to a thunderous ovation. I looked around the room and saw nothing but admiration and respect on the faces of my colleagues and peers. They weren't seeing me as a victim anymore. They were seeing me as someone who'd taken control of his situation and emerged victorious. Lucas grabbed my arm. You planned this whole thing. From the moment you kissed my wife in public, yes. Every move you and Emily made after that just gave me more ammunition. You're insane. I'm thorough. There's a difference. I finished my scotch and set the glass on the bar. You should probably leave now. Security will be here soon to escort you out. He stumbled away, pushing through the crowd of people who were staring at him with a mixture of disgust and fascination. I watched him go, feeling a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with justice. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and networking opportunities. Everyone wanted to shake hands with the man who'd turned personal betrayal into corporate triumph. My phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, job offers, and social media notifications. But the best moment came when Chairman Sterling pulled me aside as the evening wound down. Buster, the board met briefly during the presentation. We'd like to offer you Victor's position, effective immediately. Senior Vice President of Strategic Development, corner office, direct access to the board. Everything Victor had tried to take from me was now mine. I accept, I said simply. Excellent. There's just one more thing. He smiled. We're also promoting you to the executive committee. Congratulations, Buster. You've earned it. As I left the Plaza Hotel that night, walking through the lobby where tourists and late-night socialites stared at me with recognition, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete and total victory. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one final act to perform. The thunderstorm hit Manhattan like divine intervention, turning the city into a noir movie set with sheets of rain and dramatic lightning illuminating the skyline. Perfect weather for what I had planned. My new penthouse apartment, a corner unit on the 60th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, was the kind of place Emily had always dreamed of living in. The irony that I'd bought it with the money I'd saved by divorcing her wasn't lost on me. I was reviewing quarterly reports when the building's security called. Mr. Hartwell, there are several people in the lobby asking to see you. They're insistent. Let me guess. Emily Hartwell, Lucas Morrison, and Victor Blackstone? Yes, sir. How did you know? Send them up, all of them. I'd been expecting this confrontation for days. The gala footage had gone viral beyond anything Emily had ever achieved, racking up millions of views across every social media platform. The three of them had become internet parodies: the scheming influencer, the weak-willed assistant, and the corrupt executive who'd all been outsmarted by the boring husband. I activated the apartment's security cameras and started a live stream to my own social media accounts. If they wanted one final confrontation, I'd give them an audience. The elevator opened to reveal three people who looked like they'd been through hell. Emily's designer clothes were wrinkled and rain-soaked, her perfect makeup smeared by tears and weather. Lucas looked like he hadn't slept in days, his usual confidence replaced by desperate anxiety. Victor appeared to have aged 10 years in 2 weeks, his silver hair disheveled and his expensive suit hanging loose on his diminished frame. Buster. Emily stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. We need to talk. By all means, come in. I gestured toward the living room with its panoramic view of the storm-lashed city. Can I offer you anything? Coffee? Scotch? Tissues? They arranged themselves on my white leather furniture like defendants awaiting sentencing. Through the windows, lightning illuminated their faces in stark, dramatic shadows. You've destroyed us, Victor said without preamble. All of us. Are you satisfied? Not yet, actually, but we're getting there. Emily leaned forward, her eyes red with crying. Buster, please. I know I hurt you, but this has gone too far. I can't get work. I can't pay rent. My own family won't talk to me. Consequences, I said simply. You made choices, and now you're living with the results. Lucas finally spoke up, his voice barely above a whisper. The video from the gala. It's everywhere. I can't go anywhere without people recognizing me. Someone threw a drink at me yesterday. Poor Lucas. It must be terrible to be publicly humiliated. I walked to the window and watched the storm rage across the city. I wonder what that feels like. This isn't justice, Victor snarled. This is revenge, pure and simple. You're absolutely right. It is revenge. I turned back to face them. But it's also justice, accountability, and education. You three conspired to destroy me for your own gain, and instead you destroyed yourselves. There's a beautiful symmetry to it. Thunder crashed overhead, and the lights flickered dramatically. Emily stood up, her composure finally cracking completely. I loved you, she screamed. Maybe I lost my way. Maybe I made mistakes, but I did love you. No, Emily, you loved what I could provide. The lifestyle, the security, the content opportunities. You never loved me. I pulled out my phone and played another recording, this one from just 2 weeks before the party. Emily's voice filled the room as she spoke to Lucas about her exit strategy from our marriage. Once I have enough followers and brand partnerships, I won't need Buster anymore. The divorce will be great content. Finding myself after an oppressive marriage, or something like that. Emily collapsed back onto the couch, sobbing. You recorded everything. I'm a financial executive, Emily. Documentation is what I do. Lucas jumped to his feet, his desperation finally boiling over into anger. You're sick. This whole thing is sick. You manipulated us just as much as we manipulated you. The difference is that I manipulated you into revealing who you really were. You manipulated me into believing you were decent people. Victor stood up slowly, his face a mask of cold fury. This isn't over, Buster. You think you've won, but what? You'll destroy my reputation. Too late. It's better than ever. You'll get me fired? I just got promoted to the executive committee. You'll ruin my marriage? Already handled that myself. I walked to my desk and pulled out a manila folder. Actually, Victor, there is one more thing. Remember that comprehensive audit I mentioned to the board? The one looking into employee expense accounts? His face went white. Turns out you've been stealing from the company for 3 years. Not just the Emily-related expenses, legitimate embezzlement. The FBI is very interested in your creative accounting methods. You can't prove. I can prove everything. Bank records, credit card statements, shell companies, offshore accounts. You've been very busy. I smiled. They'll be arresting you next week. Victor lunged toward me, his corporate facade finally cracking to reveal the desperate criminal underneath. But I was ready for him. 15 years of corporate warfare had taught me to anticipate every possible move. I stepped aside and let his momentum carry him into the window. He bounced off the reinforced glass and crashed to the floor, his dignity as shattered as his criminal empire. Security will be here in 30 seconds, I said calmly. I'd suggest you leave now, unless you want to be arrested for assault on top of everything else. Emily helped Victor to his feet while Lucas stood frozen in shock. The three of them looked like refugees from their own ambitions, broken and defeated by their own greed and cruelty. This is your last chance, I told them. Leave New York, start over somewhere else. Because if I see any of you again, if you try to rebuild your careers here, if you even think about coming after me, I'll destroy what's left of your lives so completely that tonight will look like mercy." They stumbled toward the elevator, their conspiracy finally dissolved by the weight of their own consequences. As the doors closed, I heard Emily sob one final time. "I'm sorry, Buster. I'm so sorry." But it was too late for apologies. I turned back to the windows and watched the storm begin to clear. The city sparkled below me, washed clean by the rain and illuminated by lightning that no longer seemed threatening, but celebratory. My phone buzzed with notifications. Thousands of comments on the live stream I'd just broadcast, messages of support from colleagues and friends, interview requests from major media outlets. The boring husband had become a folk hero, the underdog who'd outsmarted everyone who'd tried to destroy him. But the best notification was a text from Chairman Sterling. "Board meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. We want to discuss your ideas for the Strategic Development Division. Congratulations, Buster. You've earned everything that's coming to you." I poured myself a scotch and stood at the window, watching the last of the storm clouds disappear over the Hudson River. Somewhere in the city below, 3 people were learning what it meant to lose everything. Somewhere else, their victims were finally getting justice. Lightning flashed one final time, illuminating my reflection in the window. I raised my glass in a toast to the man staring back at me. No longer boring, no longer underestimated, no longer anyone's victim. I grinned at my reflection and spoke the words that would end this chapter of my life and begin the next. Never underestimate the boring guy.